The US and Israeli strategy in the Iran war has consisted thus far of a combination of intense strikes on military bases, destruction of Iran's navy, and the targeted assassination of leadership figures, most notably the supreme leader himself, Ayatollah Khamenei, and dozens of other leaders of the regime. Recently, that toll now includes Ali Larijani, head of Iran's National Security Council, and more names are added to this list every day. From the outside, it would be easy to see this significant impact upon Iran's leadership as likely to lead to an imminent leadership crisis, possibly even the collapse of the regime itself. At the least, one might expect it would make the Iranians urgently seek negotiations. After all, it has been demonstrated quite clearly that no member of the Iranian leadership, or indeed their families I might add, are safe in this war. However, I think that this betrays a flawed understanding of how this regime operates, its strategy in the war, and the situation it would face in the event that it lost the war. Firstly, the Iranian regime operates on a layered leadership system. Many of the men who have been eliminated thus far over the last 2.5 weeks were what you might call elder statesmen, having occupied their positions for a very long time. In the case of the Ayatollah, it is widely held that he made no effort to conceal himself at the outbreak of the war because he wanted to martyr himself. This may well have been the case for various other members of his leadership cadre as well. They were older men, and they already had successors lined up to replace them. Now, how many layers of succession Iran operates with is unclear, but it is certain that there are numerous layers of contingency. Remember that this is a very populous country. The IRGC has around 150 to 200,000 personnel, and they have been preparing for an existential conflict with America and Israel since 1979, with many flashpoints along the way. As we have seen clearly over the last few weeks, there is a strong culture of martyrdom in Iran, which is hardly surprising as it is ultimately a theocracy. Therefore, it is to be expected that there will be layers of succession because these leaders aren't perturbed by the prospect of dying at their posts, as might be the case in the West. There is a clear cultural difference there. They are willing to die, arguably not taking all the measures they could do to protect their own lives, and instead prioritizing the symbolic value of sacrificing themselves for their cause, which is of course what martyrdom means. The second point here is that the Iranian strategy in this war is simply to survive, whilst keeping the Strait of Hormuz shut down for as long as possible and taking opportunistic shots at Israeli, American, and Gulf targets when presented. They are aware that the longer the war continues, the more unpopular it is likely to become not only in the US, but also with the international community. The recent spat over President Trump's request for various allies to send warships to the Strait of Hormuz has demonstrated real fractures in the alliances of the West. Furthermore, the global economy is being hit hard, and we can see this in real time in our own daily lives. You don't need to go to X to see it. 2 weeks ago, the price per litre of diesel at the fueling station I mainly use here in the UK was around 145 pence per litre. Now it's 175 pence. So a 20% increase in just 2 weeks on diesel here in the UK, a country largely uninvolved in the war. Now, if that's pain that I can feel as just a normal citizen, then what anxiety must it be causing governments across the world, especially in countries which are heavily reliant on fuel and other goods passing through the Strait of Hormuz, such as Japan and Korea, countries which are now counting the number of days' supply they have in reserve for key goods. Now, for Iran to conduct this strategy, its leaders need to demonstrate perseverance and immense personal courage. They need to be willing to die or risk death while still staying true to their cause. But what they don't need to display is skillful generalship. This is about tenacity for them, not strategic brilliance. There aren't boots on the ground in Iran. There aren't major battles and operations being fought which include combined arms. This is mainly the attacks of missiles and drones, wearing down the enemy's defences. The point here is that reliance on a single powerful leader, or even an entire cadre of leaders, is not necessary. Finally, I think it's important to understand that for the Iranian regime, this war is existential. We can't know how the conflict will end, but as it continues to develop, the chances of either side accepting limited terms, anything short of a clear victory, get smaller each day. Just think about that. In the first few days of this war, the first 4 days let's say, the US might have settled for a limited strike similar to Operation Midnight Hammer last year. Trump could have walked away, claiming he devastated the Iranian military, and that would be that. Now, the investment is so much greater, the situation so much more complex, it's sucking in all of the world's attention. It will define the second Trump presidency, and likely the careers of numerous others, Pete Hegseth, Marco Rubio, and J.D. Vance included. If America and Israel get their way, the Iranian regime will not exist at the end of this conflict. They simply cannot afford to leave it standing. And then you have to look at it from the Iranian side. Let me state this clearly. If the current regime is defeated, there will be regime change. If there is regime change, then the old leadership will be eliminated. This always happens in revolutions. It doesn't matter who comes after, they will consolidate their power and make a statement of it through show trials, executions, and so on. And that's without the consideration of targeted assassinations or mob reprisals for what would be considered the failure of the old regime to defend the homeland. If Iran is defeated, the regime submits, especially after suffering weeks, possibly even months, who knows, of airstrikes, targeted bombings, attacks on infrastructure, etc., huge damage and thousands dead. It will cause an internal crisis, even in the unlikely event that no formal demand for regime change by Israel and America is made. The Iranian people will be demoralized, they will be looking to place the blame, and old reservations and enmity towards the regime will come to the fore again, and it's absolutely no stretch to believe that Israel and America would foment this where possible. So like I said, this war is existential for the Iranian regime. Yes, right now many of them are dying in targeted strikes in the course of the war, but at least whilst the war is being fought, they have a chance of not only dying for a cause they believe in, something I've already explained that many are open to, but potentially living through this, outlasting the opposition and attaining a strategic victory, as well as staying alive. On the other hand, if they did surrender, they would likely face death anyway, either at the hands of the next regime which comes in, through mob violence, or by subsequent assassination operations, which we know that the Israelis in particular are willing and capable of executing. So there it is, a short video explaining why it is that the Iranians are not going to surrender as a result of these leaders being eliminated. That strategy is not going to work in this war. Israel and America will have to think of something else. Possibly bombing Iranian gas fields, perhaps. Well, we'll get into that incident in a future video. In the meantime, if you like this and want more content covering the war in Iran and other topics, you can subscribe to the channel and follow me on X. The link is below. Feel free to leave a comment on the video and I'll get back to you. I'm always open for a discussion. For now though, take care of yourself and thank you for watching.